I could not be more thrilled to introduce an unflinching ally of our movement. She is someone who really needs no introduction. She is a labor leader. She is a tireless advocate for teachers, for our kids, and for education. And she is an unwavering ally of the environmental movement. Every time I've ever asked Randi to do something, she's always said yes, because she understands the connection between the labor movement and the environmental movement better than anyone else in this country. She understands that we are one movement with a shared vision, a better country for the next generation. And I'll tell you this, you will not find anyone in the country who will do more to put Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the White House than Randi Weingarten. So please join me to welcome her.
So you can hear it in my voice already. Thank you. I've done 2 screaming speeches in the last hour already, so you're not getting a screaming speech. But I mean, who knows if you're not getting a screaming speech? But first off, thank you for that introduction. I do want to say that I was really honored by the invitation to this caucus and because of what that represents. And so often, if I may be in the, witnessing by live stream and by thousands of friends here, so often within even democratic politics, there's always this division. And for years, there was this division between people who were environmental activists. I'm not saying anything that all of you don't know, but you're wondering, really, will a labor leader actually now say this? But between environmental activists and between some of us in the labor movement who actually work for industries that include coal, fossil fuel, all of that. And so at the end of the day, part of what we're doing as a labor movement and part of what we're doing as an education union, and right now we're not just education, we have become the 2nd largest nurse union, we've become the largest higher ed union, we're a public employee union, is that we actually have to prove that by the work we do, that what unites us is more important than what will divide us. And so as a labor movement, one of the reasons I was honored to be here is because the climate is essential for all of us. And what we have to actually do is we have to prove to people who are saying, oh my God, look at these gas prices, what are we gonna do? We have to prove that what is most important is that we actually have a climate in the next generation or the next 100 years. That it doesn't actually matter what industry you're working in if the planet is boiling, or if there are floods that are so far extreme, like we just saw in Connecticut in the last 24 hours. Like we just saw so many other places. If you cannot actually breathe in a school, not just because you have asthma like me, but because in May it is 120 degrees outside and you do not have air conditioning in a school, how is it that a child is going to learn or a teacher is going to be able to teach? So part of why I was honored to be invited is because we have to make the climate issues real for every single person in America. That they have to see that the climate and fighting for the climate is as important as fighting for a dignified wage, as important as fighting for retirement, as important as fighting for democracy. Because if we have a burning climate, no one is going to be able to live here. So that's the narrative story that all of us, particularly those of us who didn't grow up in the climate movement, we have to do as fiercely as those of you who grew up in this movement. And so there are two things. The contrast is easy. Really, having Trump basically say to the fossil fuel execs, give me $1 billion and I will do whatever your bidding is, that used to be called bribery. I thought that was illegal. But maybe if you have 34 felony convictions already, that line is a little blurred. But what I think is really, the last kind of two things I want to say is this. If you look at what has happened in terms of the IRA and the other climate initiatives that have happened under the Biden administration, I heard people say this already, there's no administration that has done more not only to fulfill the Paris Climate Accords, but to do more in terms of really changing what is going on in terms of our climate and our needs. And we need to give the Biden administration that kind of credit for the work that they have done. And next, and this is the big thing, we need to make sure that Trump and Project 2025, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, that they do not try to divide our country and scare people into sitting on the sidelines when we keep saying we must do more in terms of climate. We do have a climate emergency. We need to do more. And Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, when elected, will do more. But we got to get them elected. So what I would suggest we do is take the one thing, I'm going to end as a teacher. Take the one thing, instead of talking about big goals, and take the one thing that you know is really, really important about climate. For me, it's breathing, because I'm an asthmatic, and a lot of kids I taught are asthmatics. How are we going to make it better if we don't reduce emissions? How do we make it better in the Bronx if we don't reduce emissions? Take one thing that you know is really important to you and use that as the way in which we explain this climate emergency and why we need to make sure that the air we breathe, that the water we drink is not only important today, but for our kids and our grandkids and every generation we bequeath this world to. Thank you very much. See, the water we drink.